Many of us here have been to Tel Aviv. Perhaps on our tours, we were informed that the name of this amazing city means mound, tel, of spring, aviv. And this is true, but the name actually has an even richer meaning if we begin to excavate the word tel. In Hebrew, a tel is not just a hill. A tel is a layered hill that holds within it the record of many different inhabitants of that spot, civilizations over centuries or even millennia, because they've all built upon the same spot. So the name Tel Aviv embodies a beautiful contrast that between that which is layered and ancient, a tel, an archaeological site, and that which is new, constantly reborn, growing and changing, aviv, spring, the season of spring. This special city was given its name because the early dreamers who settled there, inspired by Theodore Herzl, wanted their new home to be both of these things, a place of history and memory and layered meaning, and a place of rebirth and renewal for their people. And the idea that something could be both of these things at once is a powerful lens through which to view all of our Judaism in its many forms, and most especially this holiday now ending, Passover. The Passover holiday now ending is a wonderful sample to examine under that lens, using our skills of excavation and regeneration to learn something new about our Judaism and the spiritual and intellectual magnificence of this holiday that we're in. Take the matzah. As flat and tasteless as it is, matzah is a wonderfully rich tell. It is, of course, a reminder of the story of the haste of the Israelites in their departure from Egypt, but it is also that bread of affliction, the digestive challenge of which, and the taste of which, or lack thereof, is meant to remind us of how hard it is to live in poverty. And the matzah also has a spiritual dimension. Its lack of leaven is a symbol of what is most essential in life. The process in which we rid our houses of leaven. And this is not meant to make any of us regret the pizza or the pasta or the challah that is waiting just on the other side of this service or this Shabbat. But the process of ridding our houses of this leaven is also a process in which we are supposed to spiritually rid our lives of materialism, in which we're supposed to deflate our egos and lighten our loads in life to include only that which truly matters. And the experience we have during the week of Passover, bringing matzah everywhere and living separately, even though we go about our business in the rest of the world, is a reminder, I hope, to each of us of how special it is to be Jewish and how hard it is to be observant and of how fulfilling our cultural and religious history is. All of that from a little cracker. On Passover, the biblical scroll that we are to read is the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. This compendium of love poetry is one of the most complex books in the entire Bible. Even as we quote from it on wedding invitations, Ani l'dodi v'dodi li, I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. Why do we read it for Passover? Another tell. One of the traditional explanations for why we read Song of Songs on Passover is because of its beautiful and lush springtime setting. Springtime being the season, the physical backdrop of the holiday of Passover. But biblical scholars point out that this is really not a strong enough reason, that there are other biblical books that mention spring. And so why would the rabbis prescribe that we read ancient and erotic love poetry on Passover when they could just as easily offer us a G-rated book from the Bible? Another reason offered then is that there's an allegorical reading to this book. In this text that expresses a deep and passionate relationship, not between two human lovers, but between God and the people of Israel. There are many biblical passages that express this relationship between a people and their God as a marriage and equate the fidelity that is demanded by both. And perhaps the rabbis say Song of Songs is simply continuing in that tradition. And then there is a midrashic tradition that the Song of Songs is actually an explication of the Exodus story itself. and that the lovers in this poem, coaxing one another out of hiding and the longing expressed between them, is just a riff on the way that Israel longed for their God while they were in Egypt, and the way God called them to stop hiding from who they are and to march proudly into the sea and to become a free people. And as history unfolded, Song of Songs has also been viewed as an expression for the passion that the Jewish people have for their land, for our land, a call toward Canaan, that we Jews are homing pigeons who have long delayed in returning to our source, but not delaying any longer. This biblical book that Jews are reading all over the world today is a massive tell, each level offering a new entry point into our connection with our Bible and our holiday. And finally, the reason for the holiday of Passover itself. It shares with all of our holidays numerous dimensions that have been mixed and mingled over time, sometimes obfuscating one another and sometimes elucidating and heightening one another's resonance in our lives. Passover is, of course, a holiday about the historical experience of a people moving from slavery to freedom, and it recalls our journey toward redemption, brought about by God's miracles and by human courage. But Passover is also an agricultural holiday. The full moon that occurred last Friday night as we were sitting down to our seders attests to the inextricable link between Passover and the season and month in which it falls. And Passover is the time of the pilgrimage to Jerusalem and with the first sheaves of the barley harvest. And the counting of the Omer, which occurs right now during the 49 days between Passover and Shavuot, would be a progression toward the end of the barley harvest and the beginning of the wheat harvest. And added to that fact, the Passover is also the holiday that seeds our empathy as Jews. Remember the plight of the strangers, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. All justice and all compassion, the gift of the Torah itself, is based on the experience retold around our Seder tables. Passover is a wellspring of goodness in the world. It gives us a sense of kinship with all oppressed peoples in the world, tethering us to our worst experiences so that we can tap into our best impulses. In this, it exemplifies the most productive way to use our pain to heal the world and to heal other people. It was powerful this week to celebrate Passover in Memphis, when the entire world cast its eyes toward this holy ground, the place where Martin Luther King breathed his last breath and lost his life. This place that is at once the poorest and most generous city in America. And the message of the long road toward freedom, the road laden with setbacks and challenges, with fear and with faith, that message comes from our holiday, from our Haggadah. It is this holiday observance that gave the world the language to talk about redemption in every age. So as this holiday comes to a close, I pray that we never take it for granted, never simply look at its surface. It is our Tel Aviv, our ever-renewing archaeological excavation. And the deeper we mine our tradition, the more creativity it yields, the more life it gives. Tonight, let us thank God for this gift of observance and thank the generations of our families who held on to it for us, sensing within it a wellspring of inspiration. So whether next year at Passover we find ourselves in Jerusalem or in some other city or in Memphis, let us never forget that we will also be in Tel Aviv. Shabbat shalom.